Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to spring. Today we are reviewing the X-Files Season 2 episode, Die Hand Die Verletzt. I believe that's how you say it. I don't speak German. Please feel free to school me in the comments on that, butchering that pronunciation. I looked it up on Google Translate and I tried my fucking best. Okay, so that's what you're getting. It is a season 2 episode. It's one of those X-Files episodes that's super obscure. Nobody talks about it, and it's literally the most graphic thing I've ever seen. That one and Sanguinarium, I believe that's how you say it, in season 4. And people keep talking on and on about how the X-Files had to censor episodes like Home, but they never talk about these 2 episodes. They are probably 20 times more graphic than Home. And people got so pressed about Home. It's probably the incest subplot there. But Die Hand Die Verletzt, and that's the last time I'm going to be pronouncing that because I don't want to butcher it any further, is pretty fucking whack. It's just one thing after the other, my lord. If you want to know how fucking weird this episode is, a guy gets eaten whole by a python, and that's not even the most relevant thing in the plot. So you know you're in for a fucking treat. This episode is written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong. My hashtag platonic boys. This was their last episode that they wrote before their temporary departure from the show. And then they would come back and write episodes like Home and other very iconic episodes. They're also very famous for wanting Mulder and Scully to be hashtag SpongeBob SquarePants meme platonic. We talked about this in the last vlog on the episode Squeeze. And of course, David and Jillian just play Mulder and Scully like they're the horniest human beings on the face of the planet. Not so much in this episode, or they do it in a more subtle way than they did in an episode like Squeeze or Home. But we'll take a look at it. This episode has some wonderful moments, and it's got some moments that piss me the hell off. So yeah, a pretty standard X-Files episode. Let's get into it. So the episode begins. This episode, once again, brought to you by H2O. And Steven Universe's Pink Lion. If you watch Steven Universe, you'll get that reference. Oh, and also my cat ears. Huzzah. I couldn't find black cat ears, so there you go. Anyway, the episode begins with these middle-aged white people doing some sketchy small-town conspiracy shit. Oh, gee, this show has never done that before, has it? Anyway, they're the school board, the local high school board, and they're having this conference. They get really pressed about the theater department wanting to put on a reproduction of Jesus Christ Superstar, which is pretty hilarious, and it also very much sets the tone for this episode. If you've never watched Jesus Christ Superstar, please do. It's wonderful. It's just fantastic. But it's a very hilarious piece of media because Christians get really pressed about it because they think it's too secular, and then secular viewers get pressed about it because they think it's too Christian, when really it's just a wonderful piece of art. So there you go. Watch Jesus Christ Superstar. It's wonderful. I always like to watch it around Easter. It's really good. It's a really good rock opera. So they get pressed about that, and then they say, let's close with a prayer. And if you've never watched this episode before, you're probably led to believe that, like, these are some ultra-Christian people who are bringing prayer back into school. Oh, goodness gracious. we'll get into that in just a minute. I have many thoughts on it. And it turns out that they're praying to demonic forces. So, you know, you do you guys. There's the woman who's leading the prayer also says, Die Hand Die Verletzt. And again, this is the last time I'm going to pronounce that, I promise. I'm terrible at pronouncing it, I'm sure. And that means the hand that wounds. Ooh, edgy. Glenn Morgan and James Wong, in German. So then you get the title sequence, and then you see these kids, and they're going off in the woods, and to do some hanky-panky times. And I'm like, oh boy, don't we love how this show puts literal underage minors into sexual situations, which is just gross and disgusting. I fucking hate it. Like, shows shouldn't do that. But they won't give our two adult main characters with all the chemistry in the universe a sex scene in this entire fucking show. So, fuck you, X-Files. Anyway, they go off in the woods. There's 2 girls and 2 boys. One boy named Dave begins to read like this dark ritualistic prayer that he got out of a library book, which I think is pretty cute. And then all this spooky shit starts to happen. There's some confusion here. Do the kids summon the demon, or did the demon come to like punish the hypocritical middle-aged white people? I don't know. And again, because this is the X-Files, we're never going to get a definite answer on anything. Anyway, there's like flames shooting out of the trees and all this shit. One of the guys bites it, and the other 3 kids run away. So then it cuts, very good transition to the kids screaming and running, to just Scully standing very stoically in the forest under an umbrella. She sees this altar where they were supposedly having this black mass ritual. There's lots of candles there. Mulder makes a really cute dad joke, and usually Mulder's jokes are just fucking terrible. Like, I wanna throw my shoe at the television terrible, but this one's cute. He says, put some pictures of John Wayne around it, you know, and it'll make a nice coffee table. And I thought, that's pretty good, Mulder. I like that dad joke. So, the police chief shows up, and hey, it's Jack from Chinga. This actor plays so many characters in the X-Files. He's also the detective in Jose Chung's From Outer Space, the guy that says blank hole and bleepity bleep, detective manners. Can't wait to get to Jose Chung's From Outer Space. That's going to be a delight. So, he is telling them, like, these kids listen to devil music, which is probably what led them to, like, do this. And, this is a thread that goes throughout this episode, like, people saying, like, oh, those kids being exposed to violent video games and devil's music is what led them to do this. Like, they can't possibly conceive of their kids doing anything on their own accord that's bad. You see this a lot in the X-Files too, and boy oh boy, that's a sentiment you see in the real world. Like, I encounter it so much in the small towns around this area. Like, people are like, our kids could never do that, and it's pretty annoying. So also all these people's talk of like video games and like devil's music leading kids to do these things is very sparkle emoji, a very special episode of the X-Files. It's a lot like Scully's talk in Wet Wired about like how television leads you to do like violent things. It's giving off those vibes of a very special episode. Anyway, Jack is telling them all this. Mulder looks at Scully and he's like, hide your Megadeth albums. And I'm like, yeah, Mulder, it's all fun and games until you figure out that Scully is like really into death metal music. You look me in the eye and tell me Dana Scully was not a death metal head in college. Probably still is. She's probably still like in her car on the way to work, like screaming it. Scully is like the cartoon Agresuko, the little red panda who like is just so fucking done with her job that she goes to karaoke bars and just screams death metal to get all of it out. That's Dana Scully. Her and Reyes go out on weekends and do that. So that would actually be a really cute fic. Get on it, fic writers. So Mulder makes that joke, unbeknownst to him, that Scully's a huge Megadeth fan. Scully starts telling him she also finds the page of the library book that these kids were using, and she hands it to the police chief, and she's like, I'm amazed you guys didn't find this piece of evidence. And the guy's like, oh, we're really shaken up is why we didn't overlooked it. And I'm like, that's pretty fucking suspicious. But of course, that plot line goes fucking nowhere because this is the X-Files, and you know how writing on the X-Files is. Anyway, it really makes me wonder, like, is the police chief involved? Like, it kind of seems like he's really trying to play innocent, like the sheriff on Our Town, but it goes nowhere. And that would have been fascinating. Like, this guy who's like not really sure what's going on, but he's still trying to cover the asses of the people who are doing it. Like, that would have been a captivating storyline, but of course, you know how the X-Files writing is. They see all the potential laid out before them and chooses the worst option. So, Scully's like, you know, people can talk till the cows come home about how devil's music and like video games and television like lead kids to do bad things, and it's not fucking true. And then the sky rains toads. It's very cute. Mulder and Scully are just extremely weirded out by it. It's really, David and Jillian's expressions are almost like they weren't expecting toads to fall from the sky. It's hitting their umbrellas. It's really cute. The toads are like jumping around Scully's legs, and she says, Mulder, toads just fell from the sky. And it's so cute. Peak Dana Scully adorability. Also just seeing Scully around all of these toads, it looks like she's gonna kiss them. And I'm like, Dana Scully, Disney princess confirmed, right? I think in Fresh Bones, the episode that's right after this, she makes that joke. She sees some frogs and she's like, maybe I should kiss a few. And I'm like, yes, the Princess Scully and the Frog is what this vlog needs to be named. So, it won't be the only time in this episode Mulder and Scully encounter some sketchy amphibians / reptiles. So, in the next scene, Mulder and Scully are at a library, and my gender is Mulder and Scully snooping around libraries. I love it when Mulder and Scully go to these old 90s libraries and look through card catalogs. For you babies that are watching this, or that watch the X-Files, a card catalog was something that every library had to have. It documented every single book and author in the library. And I remember being in like 5th and 6th grade, and my teachers are like, you have to learn the card catalog. You have to learn the Dewey Decimal System because you're going to be using it your entire life. And now it's like, kids are like, what's a card catalog? What's the Dewey Decimal System? So I'm like, yeah, how did that work out for you? So anyway, they find the card for this library book that was, the page of which was found in the woods. And they trace it back to one of the kids that was trying to perform the ritual. His name is Dave. They go to his biology class, and there is a substitute teacher there named Mrs. Paddock. We'll talk more about her in a minute. I fucking love her. Anyway, Mulder and Scully show up at Dave's biology class, and he fucking tries to jump out a fucking window. And I'm like, Dave, who do you think you are? Alex Krycek? It's a very Alex Krycek move. So Mulder goes and hauls the kid's ass back in the room. I don't know why. It gives off vibes of like when if Mulder and Scully got to raise their son William. Maybe when he became a teenager, maybe his boyfriend would like sneak into the house at night, like to get some smoochy time on, or to hold hands and watch movies, to gaze longingly into his eyes, and then Mulder and Scully come home early from their date, and William's boyfriend tries to jump out the window, and Mulder just hauls him back in and gives him a very firm talking to. I would love to see Mulder and Scully like in that situation. That would be something else again. So, God, we were cheated. Never got to see them raise their kid. So, they haul him back in. They're interviewing him. His friend, Jerry Stevens, died. Nobody really knows how, when they were trying to perform this ritual. The two girls that were there, in the woods with them are there. They're judging him pretty fucking hard. And he's like, I don't know anything about witchcraft, and I wanted this to sound good, so I got this library, and I, like, read things out of it, which really makes me wonder about demons. Like, it would be like a toddler, like, reciting the code to, like a scientific equation or something. Like, they don't know what they're saying or doing. And the demons are like, yep, guess we'll jump. Someone's calling me on the it's the hotline bling. It's the demon hotline bling, like the Drake song. That needs to be the title for this vlog. Demon hotline bling. So, when you get that hotline bling. Yeah. So, Mulder and Scully go and like interview these sketchy middle-aged bastards who were at the beginning of the episode, like saying the demonic prayer. And they're like, oh, we don't know anything. And they're like, oh, it's this devil's music. You know, they're like, a satanic cult has infiltrated our community. Scully gives this very pissed off speech about how if that were so, like, these cults infiltrating communities without a shred of evidence, she says it would be the greatest conspiracy of our time. And then this bastard's like, oh, now you know what we're up against. And Mulder's just standing in the back letting Scully take this shit, his FBI partner, and he's just kind of standing there like smiling, like letting it happen. And I'm like, bro, that's your partner, get in there and fucking support her. Mulder does this so much throughout the series. He does it in DPO, where he just kind of like stands back, and it's like he enjoys Scully being punished, like for being correct about something. And it's gross behavior. Like, Mulder doesn't piss me off quite as much in this episode as he usually does, but that behavior makes me pretty pissy. Anyway, Scully's getting very heated, and I will say this for Mulder. He, like, puts his arm around her, and he's like, our investigation's still ongoing. And he, like, leads her away, because she's about to jump a motherfucker. So anyway, you see, one of the kids that were out in the forest, her name's Shannon, and she's doing a dissection of a pig in her biology class with the substitute, Mrs. Paddock. And I think it's hilarious. The X-Files keeps taking things that happen to kids and say, like, oh, look at this. Isn't this a paranormal thing? Must be behind it. When it's just, like, kids being kids. Like, I don't know anyone that I grew up with in the 90s who didn't go out in the woods and try to summon some demons. And also, dissecting a pig is pretty fucking horrifying anyway. Like, you don't need demonic possession at work to, like, make that scarier. They also do it in Rush. They do it in Born Again. And it's like, these kids are acting fucking weird. And the show's like, oh, it must be a paranormal circumstance to make our babies act this way. And I'm like, no, kids are just fucking strange. Like, that's just being a kid. Like, it's scary and weird, all right? Like, that's scary and weird enough. You don't need paranormal circumstance to try to explain it. Anyway, the pig starts, like, its heart starts beating, and its head starts twisting around and looking at Shannon, and she freaks the fuck out. She runs off, and then you see Mrs. Paddock trying to comfort her. Should we talk about Mrs. Paddock now? Okay, she's one of the best villains on the X-Files for many reasons. She's scary as fuck. We'll get there in just a minute. But I love how she plays people. Like, of course, she has like, I'm just the innocent substitute teacher. I don't know anything. Which would be pretty good on its own. But I like the way she plays Mulder and Scully to their particular beliefs and biases. Like, she looks at Scully and she's like, I don't know what could possess children to do this. And then she looks at Mulder and she's like, she's playing him too. We'll talk more about it in a little bit. Anyway, Shannon runs off and they say like, oh, your dad's coming to get you. And Shannon's like, no. And Scully like immediately says, that's a red flag. Mulder and Scully take Shannon outside and start to talk to her. So this is the part of the episode that rubs me the wrong way. Shannon tells Mulder and Scully this story about how her stepfather, Mr. Asbury, who's on the school board, would take her and her sister off into the woods for these demonic rituals and sexually assault them. It is so graphic. Like, this scene of Shannon telling Mulder and Scully this story in graphic detail, I had to skip it. Like, it's so fucking disturbing. And what's even more disturbing is how this show handles it. Like, as you're led to believe, and I don't really believe this, Shannon was not sexually assaulted. And that's her stepfather who she's accusing that's telling Mulder and Scully this. He's like, I never sexually assaulted her. But he assaulted her physically, her and her sister. And with Shannon reacting in this violent, tearful manner, I'm like, I think she was sexually assaulted. It's the way the show handles this. Like, and it, like, why would you want to bring this into the show? Why would you want to, like, have this underage character sexually assaulted by her stepfather and just fucking drop that plot line? They're like, oh, LOL, but I guess it didn't really happen, you know. It's a really good litmus of what the X-Files does with the subject matter. And I've spoken at length about this before, like how they'll take these very delicate subjects like sexual assault or rape and just throw it in as a cute little sci-fi subplot. And it's disgusting. Like, it very much shows how there were no women or minorities in the writer's room. Like, how these were white men, like, writing these episodes. Like, you can very much tell it. That's a very good example of that. So, it is nice to see Gillian Anderson, like, feel the gravity of this. She's the only person that does. David fucking doesn't. And the writers don't, but it's nice to see at least Jillian, like, feeling that gravity because she's a woman. And if a woman has not experienced sexual assault or harassment, which is just terrifying, they have women who they love who has. That's the terrible plight of women in our society. And she immediately, like, reaches out to this girl and is comforting her. They go to the Asbury's house. I really want Scully and Mulder, like, to hold Shannon's stepfather down and take turns punching him. Like, that's how I feel about this man. They go in there. The Asburys are like, oh no, this never happened. Mr. Asbury is like, something put these ideas in her head, which just gives off some yucky, we don't believe victims of sexual assault vibes for sure. And again, it's like Mr. Asbury is telling Mulder and Scully this, like, this never happened. Someone put these ideas in her head, and I never sexually assaulted her, while he's the one Shannon is accusing of this. Like, his wife, Mrs. Asbury, Shannon's mother, like, never steps in and says, like, well, maybe we should listen to Shannon. Like, why is this bothering her? It's so fucking gross. I hate it. So, again, you get this talk from the Asburys of, like, it's the devil music putting this in the kid's head. There's a really cute scene where Mulder looks at Scully and then he kind of, like, jerks his head in the direction of the kitchen, like, telling her, like, you need to get rid of Mr. Asbury so you can talk to Mrs. Asbury. And that look, that, like, silent communication between them, it's the same thing that happened between Scully's parents, Maggie and Bill Scully, in Beyond the Sea. Like, the Maggie gives Bill that same look where she's like, she looks at him and then she, like, jerks her head in that silent communication. It's very cute. It's a good callback. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but damn, it's really good. So, the Mulder goes into the kitchen with Mr. Asbury. There's a great scene where Mulder, like, comes right up behind him and he's like, did you do it? And Mr. Asbury, like, shatters the glass in his hand. And I'm like, yeah, he did it. Like, that's, how much more evidence do you need? Like, this guy is a motherfucker. He's terrible. He's a terrible person. He goes into this speech about how, like, the town they live in was founded by these people who were persecuted by Christians fleeing persecution. I have two things to say about that. First of all, why is this show framing Mr. Asbury like he needs sympathy? I know why it is, because this is the X-Files, and it does it all the fucking time. They'll, like, take abusers and rapists and just awful men who do terrible things and frame them as they need sympathy. They want your sympathy. And I'm like, no, they're fucking terrible people. They're not getting my sympathy. Like, why do they need our sympathy again? So, but then his speech about how Christians are, quote, persecuted, especially in the United States, conservative Christians love to go off about how they're persecuted for their faith. And they're persecuted by these secular people. And then they just turn around and persecute every single person that does not share their beliefs. Yeah. What is the song by Donald Glover? This Is America. Yeah. So, that really hit home. I wish it wasn't a stupid ass child abuser that said this, you know. That's pretty stupid and fucked up, but it hits home. So, Mulder gazes down into Mr. Asbury's cellar, and I'm like, Fox Mulder in the Chamber of Secrets. I hate to reference Harry Potter because that series is trash, but that's pretty much it. It's Fox Mulder in the Chamber of Secrets, especially when you figure out what's about to happen. So, Then you see these middle-aged goons, and they're under their umbrellas having another private conversation, and they're like, Shannon, the girl, anyway, they're like, she can take the blame for Jerry Stevenson's murder and all this weird shit that's been going on. And Mr. Asbury is like, you see his face, and he's like, no, I'm going to turn against this. Which I think the show is like trying to redeem him, but goddamn, it's too little too late. I don't feel sorry for this fucking guy. Anyway, you see Shannon, and she's like she's dissecting the pig fetus, because she missed her first dissection, I guess. Trigger warning, dissecting animals in biology class. I vomited so many times when I was forced to dissect animals in biology and anatomy class in high school. So, Mrs. Paddock is like, let me take your charm bracelet. You wouldn't want to get pig guts on it. That's right. Ms. Paddock is practicing black magic. So, couple things. Shannon kills herself, which I hate. Like, really, you're going to set up this character where all of this traumatic stuff happens to her, and then you're just going to axe her off. But again, why am I surprised? This is the fucking X-Files. It fucking hates women. So why am I surprised? Second thing, Mrs. Paddock is a fantastic villain. Like, this character has almost no special effects surrounding her. Except at the end where you see her with the snake eyes, which is fucking scary. It fucking lives in my nightmares. It's the way she plays it. She's likable. Like, she genuinely seems to care about her student. She genuinely seems to care about her job. She's very congenial. And then she is just, I guess, she's a demon. Yeah, like, she is playing everyone, and I love it. It's so good. Why did they not bring her back in the revival? Oh, I know, because it's the X-Files. And the revival did not have the benefit of some of its better writers. So of course they wouldn't bring back this amazing villain. But oh boy, that would have been great. And it's even teased at the end, like she's still out there. We'll get there. It's terrifying. So, Mrs. Paddock, top 5 villains in the X-Files. So good. So, she makes Shannon kill herself. She does this hex on her. Anyway, you see Scully and Mulder, and they're there, and Mrs. Paddock is like, oh, I don't know how kids could do this to themselves. And then all the time she's just like rubbing her hands together, and she knows she's playing them. Scully looks at Mulder, and she says, Mulder is 1,000% convinced that it's the school board doing these things, like murdering these kids. And then Scully looks at Mulder, and she says, but what about Mrs. Paddock? And she says, none of her story checks out. Like, the guy she's subbing for just came down with a case of flesh-eating disease. And she says, none of the people here can remember hiring her. And she's like, we should look into this. And then Mulder's like, oh no, it could never be her. And then you see Scully immediately backpedal and be like, oh yeah, well, it's probably a rational explanation. And I'm like, no, Dana Scully. When has your intuition not been on the money? It always is. And again, it's like, it really makes me wonder, what if Scully had someone supporting her precognitive abilities and her intuition, which is always dead on the money, instead of having someone like Mulder who's just constantly gaslighting her? How much of a different show and a different character arc would Scully have had, is what I'm saying. So, Scully backpedals, which is just, Scully, no, you're dead on the money. I also love how it's Scully that's onto Mrs. Paddock and not Mulder. Mrs. Paddock plays Mulder like a fucking fiddle. So, also, I just want to take the opportunity to say, Mulder believes in these demons. This demonic possession. He believes in demons, which are a integral part of Christianity. But whenever Scully has a faith-based revelation, I'm so sorry, I can't talk, has a faith-based revelation, that's always correct. I just want to point that out. And Mulder sees her being correct in every opportunity. He immediately dismisses that. That's some bullshit, Mulder. I think I've kind of expounded on the theories I have of why he does this. And again, I keep saying this, but when I get to the episode Revelations, where Mulder's at his gaslightiest towards Scully, I really want to go into, like, why I think he does this. I think my leading theory now is, like, Mulder tells himself these stories, whether they're true or not, to make sense of the universe. Like, that's his religion. And when in his mind, when he proves Scully's rationale wrong, like, that gives credence to his beliefs, which gives stability to his universe. And then when she is in the believer role, that upsets his very weak and limited worldview. And I believe that's why he gaslights her when she has these revelations, or like turns to believing in the supernatural. When we get to Revelations, I definitely want to talk more about it. But that's what I believe. That's my leading theory right now. So anyway, Mulder goes back to Mr. Asbury's house. They split up, even though they know a murderous person's on the loose. Use the fucking buddy system, guys, please. It will save you a lot of grief in the end. We are too irresistible was the last episode, Mulder. Haven't you learned your fucking lesson? How you need to use the buddy system here. So, Mulder goes back to Mr. Asbury's house. He starts crying like a little bitch. You don't feel sorry for this guy? Nope. Mr. Asbury's like, yeah, I'll tell you all about these fuckers that are, like, doing this conspiracy in the town. I also love how Mr. Asbury's like, oh, I never sexually assaulted Shannon, but I did assault her, so that's okay, right? I'm still a good person, right? And I'm like, no, you're not. Anyway, Mulder leaves. He handcuffs him to the banister, and the giant python that is in Miss Paddock's room comes into the cellar and fucking eats him. And I'm like, good for that python. If anyone deserves to be eaten whole by a python, it's that motherfucker. Anyway, Scully's in her wickle round glasses doing profiling. Again, Scully doing all the fucking work in this episode. Mulder gets a call from the school. It's Scully, or he thinks it's Scully, but Mrs. Paddock has stolen Scully's pin and is putting a curse on Scully. Poor Scully. She has two curses put on her in the span of 2 episodes. This episode and Fresh Bones, the one directly after it. Poor Scully. And this is right on the heels of Irresistible. Like, not traumatized Dana Scully challenge, right? Jesus Christ. That's this entire show, right? Just, create the greatest woman character of all time and just continually abuse her and traumatize her and leave her with no joy or personal life. That's great. So, or friends or family. Huh, that's great. So, but we keep talking about how this show is, like, so feminist, right? I keep forgetting. So anyway, Mulder comes there. She's like, Mulder, I'm fine. Which, I love that trope when Mulder's, like, rushing in to save Scully. And she's like, Mulder, I'm okay. Like, it's so cute. I love it. Anyway, they go back to Mr. Asbury's house and they find his skeleton. Mulder says, these look like snake tracks in the dust. And I'm like, how would you fucking know that, Mulder? Oh, I know. Because the writers always give you the fucking answers. That's how you know. I keep forgetting. So, Mulder also says some other things in this episode. Like, he drinks out of the water fountain and he's like, the water's going counterclockwise. And I'm like, how does Mulder know this? Like, how does he know these things? You know, like, I don't understand. Like, and the show's like never explaining how he knows these things. It's just like, because the writers give him all the fucking answers. That's how he knows these things. They go back to the school. They find Mrs. Paddock, who's been, or what she wants them to believe, she's been assaulted, but she's really playing possum. And then the school board comes in and knocks him out. There's a really tense fist fight. You see some A+ acting by David Duchovny. He's throwing those punches at the school board member. Looks a lot like William Shatner fighting the alien in the original Star Trek. Mulder's really David Duchovny's really channeling William Shatner here. Anyway, they lose the fight. They get fucking hogtied and dragged to the school gymnasium showers. And these people are going to sacrifice them. They are going to turn Mulder and Scully into a blood sacrifice to appease the demon, Mrs. Paddock. Why the fuck was this episode not censored? It's 12 times more graphic than Home. Anyway, they turn the showers on, and they have a shotgun ready to fucking kill them. There is one of my favorite scenes in the show. Definitely one of my favorite MSR scenes is one of the school board members like cocks back the shotgun. Also, this actor played the doctor in Young at Heart, so that's cool. Anyway, he like fires the shotgun, and every time he does, Mulder like rolls over to shield Scully with his body, which is so sweet. But also, you see David ramming his knee into Jillian's C-section scar. And I'm just, as someone who has had a C-section, it just makes me cringe every fucking time. Like, goddamn what Gillian Anderson had to go through for this fucking stupid sci-fi show. You know, every time, like, people talk about Gillian and they're, like, resentful that she was the only one in the show who had a successful career after the X-Files. We know David didn't, okay? And then they're like, oh, the X-Files will die because Gillian won't come back, and like giving her shit. Every time people say that, I'm like, what is it? Jessica Walters? I mean, not Jessica Walters. The mom from Arrested Development. I don't know why I said Jessica Walters. That's fucking She-Hulk. Anyway, she's eating the cupcake and she's like, good for her. That's what I say about Jillian. I'm like, good for her. Good for her. So anyway, they don't kill Mulder and Scully. And then they leave. And Mulder and Scully are wet and steamy and gasping in a shower. And I'm like, show, why couldn't you give us another kind of scene where they're wet and sweaty and gasping in a shower? This is the X-Files. We can't have nice things. Anyway, Scully turns to Mulder and she's like, did you see their eyes? It was like they were possessed. Scully says several of these things throughout this episode, like where she like immediately leaps on the teacher having the flesh-eating disease, or like this line where she's like, it's like they were possessed. She's very much coming into that role of the believer. I think you see it from Beyond the Sea on. You see Scully, like, Scully's the true believer of the two of them. Mulder's the true skeptic. And you very much see Scully, like, accepting that role, that she is the true believer. And this is another great example of that. Like, that how she's saying these things, like she's very much intuitively falling back on that. Anyway, you get probably one of the greatest scenes in the whole show. where Mulder and Scully go back into the biology room, and they just Mrs. Paddock is gone, and you see her very pretty substitute teacher handwriting on the chalkboard, and it says, "It's been very nice working with you." And like, she played the school board. They say, like, maybe it's not too late to rekindle our faith and, like, make this blood sacrifice to this demon. And she's just giving them the middle finger. She's like, nope, I'm going to punish every one of you motherfuckers. And it's great because she comes back in the revival and we get to see, like, that storyline wrapped up. I'm just kidding. We don't. But it would have been rad if she would have come back. And then you see it pans out and it's like your perspective is from the windows looking into the biology classroom, and that's her, the demon spirit, like moving off, still watching Mulder and Scully. Chills every time. Very much brings back the memories of watching this episode when I was 12 years old, and like just getting those chills when I see that scene. It's so fucking scary. And that is Die Hand Die Verletzt. Again, butchering that pronunciation. This is a good one. It's fucking messed up. Like the conversation around sexual assault and child abuse is fucked up, and it shouldn't be there. And that's the part that pisses me all the way off. But the MSR moments are really wonderful. And then you get Mrs. Paddock, one of the best villains in the X-Files. And you get some pretty horrific scenes, like the snake eating the person and the hog dissection. So give it a watch, you know, if you haven't watched it. Follow me on Instagram. I am at Dead Raccoons Draws It. Follow me on Twitter. I am at raccoons_dead. Maybe you can hear my chickens going fucking crazy over there. Follow me on DeviantArt. I am at dead/raccoons. And follow me here on YouTube. Leave a comment. What underrated X-Files episode do you want me to talk about next? Have a great day. I love you. Watch out for snakes. Mwah.